Hey, Intertubers, I hope you're okay. Welcome to episode 85 actually, of Mark Talks About His Stuff. And before I get onto the subject of what I'm going to be talking about today, which by the way is the worst live albums of all time, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping for you. First and foremost, I do have a comments policy, which is very simple, which is if talk shit, get banned, really. If you're going to go out and say stuff that's rude, that's confrontational, if you're generally not a nice person, your comments go straight into the spam filter. They then go into the bin and you get hidden from all the other users. So you can type away to your heart's content all the things that make you feel really, really good about telling somebody else that they're X, Y, and Z, and nobody but you will ever get to see it. So don't bother. The other thing is around opinions, and I have opinions. I'm sure you've worked this out. If you've seen any of my previous episodes, I have opinions about everything, and I'm allowed to have those opinions, and nobody else will ever be able to tell me what to think, what to feel, or what I can and can't have opinions about, because we do not live in an Orwellian world where thought crime exists. I am therefore, if I find it seems necessary and relevant in the context of what I'm talking about, to venture an opinion about, for example, a corrupt American president who has a habit of paying off prostitutes, or an incompetent, philandering British Prime Minister, or the racism or not of a member of the British royal family, I'll do it, because frankly it's my channel, my rules. But what I understand is the vast majority of you don't want to see that, and I'll try and keep it to a minimum. If you're really, really interested in hearing people's opinions about Donald Trump, you can always go and see Roger Waters live, where he will spend 2 hours telling you about how terrible Donald Trump is, and you can drink your $10 beer and you can shout shut up and play the music at him while he pockets the millions of dollars. In the meantime, if you don't like my opinions, you are entitled to a free refund, which is of absolutely nothing, because this service doesn't cost you anything apart from your time. And with that to one side, I'm now going to start talking about the worst live albums of all time. Now, generally, I don't like to do videos where I'm bitching about things, going, oh, this is awful, this sucks, this is terrible. There are other people that make their whole career of telling other people that they're terrible. That's not what I'm going to do in pretty much all the other ones I've ever done. I tend to talk in detail and positively about everything, but unfortunately, as a huge fan of the live album, I have encountered some pretty bad ones in my time, and I thought it'd probably be best if I give you some advance warning of what makes a live album good versus not good, and bad live albums that you might want to avoid. So first and foremost, some of the biggest sins that there are in live albums are around moving the songs out of the order of which they were played in the show. If you're buying a live album, you probably want to have a record of the full show, or as near to the full show, in the order that the show was played. And you want it in a decent quality recording, and you want it to be affordable and approachable. Which means, a nice way of saying, if you went to see the show, when you put the CD or the LP on, it reminds you of exactly what happened on that night when you saw that show, and it takes you back to that moment. Now, bearing in mind that there is almost no live events in the UK at the moment, and there haven't been for at least a year, if we want to get our live music fix, we have to go for live albums, and we either have to watch concerts on YouTube, or we have to go and buy the live CD or DVD, or listen to it on Spotify. And when I've exhausted all the possibilities of a band's discography, I will go to the live version, so that I get to see the same painting in a different frame, a different perspective of the same moment in time, and where bands change and alter their live arrangements, or where they put songs together and create new medleys and things like that. That's stuff I find really exciting. It keeps the old songs feeling new. So that's the two biggest sins in a live album is the songs are out of order, and the quality of the recording is absolutely terrible. So I'm going to work through this sequentially, so I'm going to start with the oldest one first, by the way. I know Velvet Underground live at Max's Kansas City is a very popular live album, and lots of people think that live Velvet Underground is absolutely 100% where it's at. Well, if you want good quality original live Velvet Underground, get the 4 CD box set, which I've got up there. I wish I brought it down, actually, which is Studio quality mixing disc recordings of live shows from the period. Live at Max's Kansas City is some guy with a huge boombox and a C90 tape, sticking the boombox on the table and recording the sounds as the air moves through the room. It is one of the very first bootleg recordings, and it somehow has been immortalised onto CD and vinyl for you to pay an absolute fortune to own. In terms of official live releases, this is pretty bad. There is a section where in between the songs you can hear one of the guys talking to one of the girls, saying, "Hey baby, I saw the Pattern movie this afternoon," in a misguided attempt to try and chat her up. Now, 51 years later, if I want to listen to the album, I have to listen to some guy try to fail to cop off with some teenager in Kansas City in 1969. It's not exciting, and the sound quality is pretty damn rough. Also, some of the Velvet Underground live releases are sliced into bits so that they're out of the sequence of the show or missing huge chunks. The other one, and as a word of warning, I do have to tell you, even though the Stooges live are one of the best live bands on the planet, or were, almost every Stooges live recording from the 70s is absolute garbage. It's again an audience recording of an extremely loud band, normally in a very small room, that sounds absolutely terrible, and you'd listen to it and go, there's something wrong with my CD player. You know, you'd put a high quality pressed 180 gram bit of vinyl on there on your super duper Technics set, and it would sound like you were playing it on some kind of Fisher Price 1970s My First Record player that cost probably £7 and 6D or something. So avoid this box set, which is called You Don't Want My Name, You Want My Action, which, by the way, has lots and lots of great unreleased Stooges songs on, but they all sound absolutely terrible because these are the cassettes that they were recorded on, and they do not deserve the lavish packaging which has been attached to these performances. They sound dog shit, as, by the way, pretty much every release from the 70s does. Metallic KO, side one of that, sounds amazing. There is the Groom Lake show from 1970 that sounds really, really great as well. Everything else, pretty rubbish. Then the third one I'm going to have to warn you about, Led Zeppelin's Song Remains the Same. Yes, I do have a lot of Led Zeppelin albums, and a Led Zeppelin live album is not a Led Zeppelin live album. There is a website called The Garden Tapes where some guy talks you through all the different changes, all the overdubs, all the additions, all the edits, all the fact that you've got a guitar from Thursday and you've got the vocals from Wednesday and the drums come from Tuesday on there. This is some kind of weird Frankenstein live album with some shockingly jarring edits and sounds in it, and the original version of it, which was released in 1976, is awful. It's just not a live album of any quality. The next one I'll talk about is just simply just a bad show that was well recorded. Joy Division in Preston. Now, when it's live, there's the risk of it being hit or miss. And with New Order, and sometimes with Joy Division, when the band were on, they were on fire. Best band on the planet. When the band weren't on, they were the worst band on the planet. Preston is not a great live album. It has huge chunks of dead space in it where equipment breaks down. And some guy goes, I'm terribly sorry, we're fixing the bass amp, or I'm sorry for everything. And at one point even, there's an intermission where some guy comes and goes, if anyone wants to get the last bus to Bradford, it leaves in 5 minutes, which is exactly not what you would expect from Joy Division live. It is, well, when I say warts and all, it's mostly warts, actually. Now, the next one, again, I don't like this for a number of reasons, but I'm going to quickly kind of explain why. Is Live Cure is fantastic, yeah, one of the best live bands on the planet. Concert, The Cure Live, their first live album from 1984, captures what is probably my least favourite Cure lineup, and it is sloppily recorded, sloppily edited, and it's taken from a multitude of shows, including Oxford and Hammersmith and let's think, at least 3 or 4 shows, and they've not paid any attention to what it necessarily would sound like playing it at home. I know it's meant to look like a bootleg, and that's probably part of the charm, but the The transitions between the songs are really, really choppy. It's like a guy pressed pause on his C90 and then put another recording in and then unpaused it again. And I'm doing you a compilation of the best of. And also, it's only 10 songs, where the shows on this tour were considerably longer than 10 songs. In fact, 16 songs from the tour have been released on various deluxe editions and websites, of which only 10 are on this. And you can really tell the difference between the shows as well, because the drum sounds are different. And sometimes the edits are so sloppy that it's missing either the first or last note of a particular song, or it cuts off the ending. Concert is not my favourite Cure live album. And of course, while I'm talking about it and talking about edits and sloppy decisions that people have made about not presenting the full show, one of the most egregious and terrible live albums of all time is Queen's absolutely appalling Live Magic, that manages to slice half of Bohemian Rhapsody out, takes about 10 songs out of the set list, and is a hodgepodge compilation Frankenstein release of multiple shows. It's 47 minutes long. It's no good, to quote Depeche Mode. Next one, as I've mentioned before, New Order, BBC live in concert. I've mentioned Joy Division before, where they had a bad day technically. This album exists because of money, and because band members wanted money and they could get £5,000 from Windsong by licensing this live recording by the BBC of the Glastonbury 1987 festival. It's not been reissued since 1992. It's not particularly good. It's missing 4 songs from the show, even though there's space on the CD for it. And the quality of the performance, that's the performance itself, not the recording quality. Some nights the vocals are not good on New Order live albums. This is one of those nights. And it sounds like a man throwing a dart blindfold at the dartboard, hoping that he's going to hit the right note. So again, not the best or representative album of New Order at their live best, because when they're live, they're at the best, they're one of the best live bands on the planet. Not that night. So the next one, this is going to surprise you. You're going to think, I never realised you like so much stadium rock. Well, I do and I don't. There's nothing wrong with rock. There's nothing wrong with stadiums, but perhaps stadiums are too big a place to see bands. And since I don't have the CD, I have to show you the DVD version. In excess is Live Baby Live. There is DVD, which is a full recording of one show at London Wembley Stadium on the 13th of July 1991. And this is a phenomenal live DVD. You know, you watch it and you go, this band are totally excellent at what they do, and they are completely firing on full cylinders. It looks and sounds phenomenal. There's a live album called Live Baby Live. Not phenomenal at all, primarily because instead of 21 songs, it has something like 13. All the songs are sequenced out of concert order. They're taken from multiple shows, and then halfway through you change the live album bit of it comes to an end, and there's a new studio track called Shining Star, which comes at either the end of side 1 or the beginning of side 2, and you're like, I thought I was listening to a live album. It's not good. Now, with 1991 out of the way, we then get to the worst David Bowie live album there is, Tin Machine's Oy Vey Baby. The title is a terrible pun on U2. The album is a terrible experience to listen to. It's got an 8-minute version, I think, of Stateside on there, and that's 9 minutes too long for that particular song. It's a bad album because it's not the full show. It's not even half a full show, and it is very indulgent, very widdly-woo, and it's definitely not worth paying more than about 50p for. So when I paid £4 for it, I was like, you saw me coming, didn't you? It's the worst David Bowie live album. Now, this is where I'm going to get really bitchy, and I bet some of you are going to be surprised and think, Mark, I didn't know that you liked Van Halen. Well, that's okay, because Van Halen haven't played a UK show since 1995. And in fact, they've only played 2 tours in the UK since 1981, I think. And so therefore, and one of them's dead now. So of course, Van Halen are a band that I will never have experienced live. Will never even have the chance to experience them live. The last time they played live in the UK was supporting Bon Jovi at, I think, Edinburgh's Murrayfield Stadium or somewhere like that, or Wembley Stadium. What a ignominious and undeserving way to go out. Sadly, the only way I experienced Van Halen live was through the miracle of CD and DVD. 1993's live release, right here, right now, the first Van Halen live album out of a whole total of 2. It's atrocious. So I'm going to talk about why it's atrocious here, which is the band went into the studio and Eddie and Alex re-recorded all the guitars and all the drums in the studio. They then rang up Sammy Hagar and said, "Sammy, you're out of tune," at which point he went, "Guys, I'm not out of tune. You've re-recorded everything in a different key in the studio." So they sat him down with a video of the performance and said, "Now you need to replicate that performance, but with our studio backing, which is in a different key." So of course, Sammy Hagar sounded much, much worse as a vocalist than he actually does on this release. It's awful. It's, oh God, I think I paid £2 for it. They should have paid me for it. The DVD is even worse because it's recorded over 2 nights at 2 different venues where every member of the band is wearing different clothes and they're doing different things during the same song, which means there's one song where Sammy Hagar, kind of goes on this big, huge catwalk over the crowd while wearing, I think, probably some revolting kind of puke, vomit, yellow and snot green jumpsuit. And then the next shot is him wearing black trousers and a red shirt, standing on a stage, a week later, 200 miles apart. It's appallingly edited. It's awful, and I didn't know how bad it was when I bought it. I think that is £1.50 poorly spent. The next thing I'm going to mention, which I don't own because I do not have any Genesis records, is Genesis's 1993 live albums. The Way We Walk, Volume 1, the shorts, and Volume 2, the longs. And unsurprisingly, Volume 1 is all the pop hits, and Volume 2 is all the weird navel-gazing prog rock stuff. And those 2 albums are presented not only out of sequence with the show, but it's recorded over 2 tours, one in 1987 and one in 1992. And the first song of the album is not the first song of the show, and not only that, but they've shuffled it around. So the last song of the show is like song 12 with another 2 songs to go, but then also all the other songs that are longer than about 7 minutes are on Volume 2. The longs, but it's bullshit anyway, and Genesis suck, and I don't need any reason to justify that opinion. Those live albums are terrible, not just because they're Genesis, but because they're terribly sequenced. This is the next one, which killed my love for Tangerine Dream in the space of about 55 minutes. This is the DVD version of the Vault 220 live album by Tangerine Dream in 1992. I was, at best, hoping that the band weren't going to be terrible. And here we get some band made out of a bass player and a guitarist and a fiddle player and 4,000 keyboardists and a female vocalist doing terrible kind of cover versions of Tangerine Dream songs that nobody likes or nobody can remember from their most recent albums, topping it off with a cover version of Purple Haze. It sounds like a Pink Floyd cover band was forced at gunpoint to write its own material. It's fucking awful. Do not buy this. 1992 also brought a live album, which, by the way, I absolutely love, but has some flaws. This is it. Pop Blues itself live at Weird's Bar and Grill, recorded at the Brixton Academy on, I think, the 11th of October 1992. This is why I'm wearing and bringing out of retirement a 29-year-old Pop Blues Itself t-shirt. I saw Pop Blues Itself on this tour. They were phenomenal. The CD doesn't reflect that because the tracks are all out of order. They're all out of sequence with the way that they were played on the night, which means that if you wanted to hear 88 Seconds and Counting, which is track 5 on this, it was actually track 19 on the night, for example. In fact, the editing on it is so sloppy that the ending of 88 Seconds and Counting is actually at the start of Defcon 1, which means you don't get the full ending to 88 Seconds and Counting, track 5, unless you actually skip forward to track 19, which is Defcon 1 and over an hour later into the album. The other thing about the record, which I don't like, is that it wasn't approved by the band. I don't think the band had any input into its release. It was a contractual obligation to recoup some money. And as I understand it, I have heard that the finished version of this album is taken from an unremastered mini disc recorded at 256k MP3, which means it will never sound better than this. Even though the band went into the studio and prepared some of the tracks for live B-sides, somebody at RCA Records, I think, picked up a mini disc and went, fuck it, who's going to care that it's 256k? That's pretty futuristic. Stuck it on a CD and an LP and made us pay money for it. I blame the record company, I don't blame the band, by the way. So, the next one that I don't like, Leonard Cohen's live. I love Leonard Cohen. Obviously, he's not live anymore. But this is recorded over two separate tours in 1988 and 1993 with different lineups. And if I recall correctly, every track fades in and fades out as it goes along, which means it sounds like a compilation tape of live B-sides that were never actually B-sides. And you go from one track where the bass player is, hang on a second, where the bass player is George Calderon, and then the next track the bass player is Steven Zirkle, and you're meant to not even notice. It's poor in my opinion. So this is where I'm going to really get the knives out here. I'm not going to fuck about. Probably the worst live album of all time, despite the fact that it's really bloody brilliant, is Depeche Mode's Songs of Faith and Devotion live. Now, this tour is one of the best tours of all time. In fact, the live DVD, called Devotional, is one of the best live documents of all time. This CD here is not, because this is a replication of every track off the album Songs of Faith and Devotion played live in a football stadium in I think Zurich and New Orleans and Leeuwarden and Copenhagen and Milan and other places, which means that at the time that, for example, you're hearing the band play Walking in My Shoes, a fairly heavy, guilt-laden song about a number of numerous, moral failings. As soon as the band start playing a big, epic, sweeping, kind of dramatic middle section that's instrumental, instead you get some singer who very possibly is chock full of cocaine going, "Let me see your hands," which is strange. And then not only that, it's out of the sequence that the songs are played in the concert order, which means that the first song on the album is actually the 9th song in the set. The last song on the album is actually the first song of the set. And one of the songs, One Caress, the performances were so bad that they didn't use anything apart from the live vocal. They just took the string section off the studio album, put in the sound of the crowd, and then overlaid the live vocal from the bad version performed by the unconvincing string section that recorded a performance that wasn't fit for release. This is garbage. Do not buy it. Buy this. This is much better. This is the full show. And any Depeche Mode live document that doesn't feature, when you've got in your set list Enjoy the Silence, Personal Jesus, Halo, Policy of Truth, World in My Eyes, Fly in the Windscreen, for example, they've got all of those songs, and yet they don't put them on the live CD because they think there's too much duplication, even though none of those songs have been on a live album before. So again, don't bother with Songs of Faith and Devotion live. If it's in a charity shop for like £2, pick it up. If it's on vinyl, pick it up and send it to me. I will pay £5.99 for it. But otherwise, don't bother. Get this, or better yet, watch this for free on YouTube. The next one I'm going to pick up, and this is again picking up into 1993, is, I'm afraid to say, the live disc on the deluxe edition of the Suede 1993 debut album. Disc 4, Live at the Lead Mill in Sheffield, recorded in February 1993, is an audience-recorded, cassette-sourced bootleg. It's boomy as fuck. You could have bought it for £5 from the Camden Market down by the canal there, and it sounds terrible. It's not worth putting on CD. They did have mixing desk recordings available. I don't know why they chose them. Presumably, it's cheaper to have an audience recording of when the band are out of contract than it is to license a fully professionally shot, mixed, recorded, listenable version of the band live. And they did have that because they're releasing Love and Poison for Record Store Day. And if I have any say in the matter, I'm going to be buying it that day as well. But putting an audience recording as the fourth CD, the live bundle, inside your £45 box set is not good enough. I wanted better than that. I wanted a decent quality recording as opposed to one I could have made on a Matsui C90 using a £15 Walkman. We've nearly finished. Now it seems that I've just spent all my time kicking bands and moaning about live albums. Well, it is called Worst Live Albums for a reason, because if I just went Best Live Albums, frankly, that's episode 66. That one's been and gone. I do not like Nirvana's From the Muddy Banks of the Wishkah, because the reason being is that it's recorded over 5 years by 2 drummers, 3 separate guitarists, 1 bass player and 1 singer. It doesn't sound like a show. It sounds like a compilation, and the set list which the band have here is a set list that not only wouldn't work on stage, it doesn't work on records. Nirvana are great and they deserve a better live album than that. So 2 more to go. Penultimate one, Iron Maiden's A Real Live Dead One. This is shit. It's shit, and it's irredeemably shit for a number of reasons. I think the first one is Bruce had decided he was going to leave the band by the time some of the shows that are on this were recorded, and I think it shows in some of his vocals. The second thing is the band decided to do something very, very similar to Genesis, to split it up into a real live one and a real dead one. And a real live one is live recordings of the more recent songs, that is, songs from about 1988 onwards. So songs from their 3 most recent studio albums on here. And then a real dead one, I think, is the songs from the previous 5 albums. So, by the way, at this point, Iron Maiden have released Live After Death, Maiden England, Live at Donington, and this is their 4th live album in 7 years, and it's not worth buying. If you've got Live at Donington, do not touch this with a barge pole unless it's on about 50p. It is not worth it. The songs are out of concert order. It doesn't make any sense. You open up with Number of the Beast, you end with Hallowed Be Thy Name. That's great. That sounds like a good set. But then Disc 2 opens with Be Quick or Be Dead and ends with Fear of the Dark. They never played this set list live on stage in any one of the shows. They never played it in this configuration. It's an arbitrary chopping and changing of it to create some kind of weird concept that they think is going to sell to people. It doesn't sound like a show. It sounds like a compilation of live offcuts and weird stuff that hasn't been released before. And to be honest, yes, I could have bought it in 1993, but I looked at the set list and I went, you're fucking kidding, you're mucking me about. It's not sounding like the live album. It doesn't remind me of when I went to see Iron Maiden. The songs are not in the right order. It's perfunctorily mixed and recorded, and it just sounds sloppy. It's not worth the money. Iron Maiden live are very, very, very good, and I think a huge chunk of that is the crowd. What this sounds like is a bunch of men playing songs that they recorded 10 years before in a football stadium in Helsinki or Gothenburg or somewhere, whilst the singer has already told the rest of them, guys, I'm just about to quit the job, and they're like, shit, we better do a live album, and then coming up with some weird concept to try and make it seem unique and exciting and a novelty. And it isn't, because nobody in their right mind would say, do you know what, I want to buy the live album that has Tail Gunner and Wasting Love on it. They'd sit there and go, Trooper, Sanctuary, Running Free, Run to the Hills, 2 Minutes to Midnight, Iron Maiden, Hallowed Be Thy Name, The Number of the Beast, Ka-ching, that's what I want. It's not reflective of the tour, it's not reflective of any show on the tour, and the performances are pretty sloppy. So the last one, and you will be surprised that I own this, but you'll be more surprised by the fact that I was there. What we did last summer. I'm showing you the DVD version because it was easier on the shelf for me to get than the CD version. This is Robbie Williams live at Nebworth in 2003. Now, I've seen Robbie Williams live in probably about 13 or 14 times. I've always gone in boyfriend or husband capacity. That is to say, I think apart from one time when I won a competition to see him, and he was being supported by the Manic Street Preachers and Ash. Every other time I've seen him, I have gone in boyfriend stroke husband capacity as the +1 to somebody that really liked Robbie Williams. Oh no, the other time I saw him was Take That and Pet Shop Boys in 2011, which was a fantastic night. By the way, I paid to see Pet Shop Boys that day, and it was worth every penny. But what we did last summer is recorded at Nebworth in August 2003. Robbie Williams played 3 shows at Nebworth. He had to be 3 because that's one more than Oasis. And his fragile ego demands that he's bigger and better than Oasis. And by the way, did you know In Excess's Elegantly Wasted has as the backing vocals Michael Hutchence, one of the Farris brothers, singing We're Better Than Oasis, because it sounds like Elegantly Wasted. And when you hear it, I think it's 56 seconds in, you can't not hear it ever again. Now, are In Excess better than Oasis? Who cares? But I thought you might appreciate a bit of pop trivia. What we did last summer is awful. It's awful for a reason that you don't necessarily know about, which is that when it was released and when it had its world premiere at the Leicester Square Theatre in 2003, Robbie Williams had not seen it. He had not seen a second of footage from it. He had not heard a second of audio from it. So he had a major cinematic release of his biggest concert show that he's ever going to play, headlining Nebworth to 450,000 people over 3 nights, and he couldn't be fucking bothered to watch the edit. He couldn't be bothered to listen to it. He just went to the guys, went, okay, I'm going to sit around counting my money. You guys make out a decent live album. I'll go, yep, no problem. You can charge people the money. I'll cash the check and do absolutely fuck all work. It's contemptuous of your public to release a live album or CD or DVD and to not have at least bloody bothered to have listened to it and checked it before it goes into mass production. It's contemptuous of your audience to listen and watch something like this and just go, you know, I don't care. You just give me the money. I don't give a shit of whether it sounds good or bad. I don't give a shit if you leave the bit in where I do a 5-minute monologue around how terrible the butcher is in Nebworth because me playing Nebworth is going to kill his weekend trade. I don't give a shit about any of that. Just give me the money. Give me the money. That's all I care about. By the way, if you need me, I'll be on my yacht throwing your faxes into the bin. It's contemptuous and it's insulting. And when I heard that it had been released without Robbie Williams even being bothered to listen to the audio or to watch a second of footage before it was released, I thought, fuck it. That is just rude to your audience. Your audience deserves better. And with that, I think I've probably wound myself up into an apoplexy of mild bemusement. So those are the worst live albums of all time. I'm sure you have some thoughts of your own about what the worst live albums are. Inevitably, you will probably have bought them. And if you bought the Genesis album, I'm really sorry about that. But you knew what you were getting yourself into. Sorry, guys, I really don't like Genesis. And I really don't like Robbie Williams. Just for that, it showed a complete contempt for the people that pay his salary, pay his mortgage, pay for him to go and spend 3 years growing a beard and taking a fuck ton of drugs and shagging supermodels and snorting cocaine out of his backside. It's really contemptuous. If you're a performer, you have a responsibility to at least pay attention to the quality of what you're releasing and to make sure that it's not abjectly awful. You can't just sign it off and go, someone else can look after it. I can't be bothered. It's too much work. I've done 14 shows this year and I'm tired. You know, the people that buy these records do 225 days work a year if they're employed. That's a lot of bloody work. That's 1,600, 1,700 hours of work every year. The very least you can do if you're going to release a live album is be bothered to check it before it goes out and fix any things that you don't like in it, as opposed to just going, yep, that's fine, I'm going to take the check to the bank. It really, really, really annoys me, because you're asking people to spend money in order from return for a certain type of product, and it should be a quality product that has at least passed the test. Now, I don't go an episode of any of these Notcasts without mentioning U2. I know that for the U2 in Berlin 2018 DVD release, the band members have watched it multiple times and they have said, I want different shots. I don't like that shot of me. I think we should have more shots of the crowd. And they've gone back and they've checked the audio and they've listened to it and they've gone, right, is it a good performance? Are we happy with this? You know, do we need to change it so that I don't make a mistake, miss a word, play a bum note, accidentally fall off the stage, those type of things. That stuff matters. And if you're going to ask people to pay for something, it should be something you should be proud to have your name on, not something you can't be bothered to have your name on and just take the money. Now, normally, I'm more cheerful than this. And normally I like to talk about things that I do love. But today is worst live albums, and I've talked through some of the worst live albums that there are. So I'm going to quickly highlight my criteria for what makes a live album good. It's roughly most of the show, unless there's some huge, terrible recording error, at which point do another show. Secondly, it should be mostly in the order in which the show was performed, and it should feel like an accurate representation and recording of the show. And the third one is, if you're going to ask people to pay for something, at least check it's not a pile of shit before it goes into mass production. And with that, I will wrap up for now. I'm going to go downstairs, I'm going to go and eat Smarties mini eggs, and I'm going to go and watch a program about how they make shreddies, because that's how I roll. As ever, if you've got any comments or suggestions, as long as they're nice ones, you can put a comment down there. Be nice in the comments section. If there's something that you think, I'm really interested to know what Mark thinks about X or Y or Z, do let me know. And if I think it will be interesting and I can sustain it for more than about 30 seconds, I'll probably give it a shot. So, in the meantime, society's going out of lockdown, slowly but surely. Nature is healing. Concerts seem to be returning slowly but surely. We are coming through this. I don't know what's going to happen next in the future, but we've made it this far, and that's something we should all be proud of. So, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and have a lovely time in the meantime. I promise next time you see me, I'll be happier, and I'll probably will have had more chocolate in between now and then. Okay. See you later, some of you. Bye.